Good afternoon and very welcome here this afternoon at our webinar arranged by the Faculty of Engineering, Build and IT at the University of Pretoria. Why did we arrange this webinar? So we arranged this webinar because we believe we can support students to make very important decisions to decide postgraduate qualification. Why is this difficult today? I think just to mention a number of things. Firstly, the rise of Industry 4.0 very directly impact our work environments today. Secondly, of course, COVID-19 had a major impact on how we work and how we remotely work today. And then also, universities are struggling, conceptualizing how are we going to work out new degrees for new careers that might be needed in the future. And from an employer point of view, what do they want? Do they want more hard skills than soft skills? Or do they also want to empower you and expect numerous different skills that you will need in your future job? Recently in the OECD report, it was published that students, people with tertiary qualifications find much easier a job than as opposed to those without the qualifications. Let me introduce our esteemed panel here this afternoon, and we will ask the panel members to participate in the discussion as we proceed. First of all, on my right-hand side, Mr. Gerdus van Eden, Chief Executive Technology Officer at MultiChoice, Ms. Zanele Mbata, Chief Executive Officer of Bambili Group, Mrs. Hina Patel, Managing Director for Applied Artificial Intelligence Africa from Accenture, and Heidi Harper, Head of Skills Development at Sanral, and Mr. Andres Metetwa, Chairman of the Acton Board. Each of these industry specialists will share with you this afternoon how they see the future develops and what skills do you need to participate on an economic basis in the future. And so they will introduce themselves, and I'm going to ask them in the following sequence. First, Mr. van Eden, just to say something short about his career, MultiChoice that you're representing, and just a little bit about the company. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Elof. Yes, Gerdus van Eden. I'm representing the technology community at the MultiChoice Group. The MultiChoice Group incorporates brands like DSTV, SuperSport, Mnet, and several others. The list is too long to mention. We are a company that prides on the innovation that has enabled our business, and we are really welcome to this opportunity to participate this evening. So I hope all of you get a good deal of insight out of this discussion.
Thank you, Gerdus, and very welcome here. And the next person is Zanele Mbata. Zanele, thank you.
In this panel, my name is Zanele, and my professional background has been, I've had more of a path than a career. I've been an investment banker on Wall Street in New York. I've done business consulting in South Africa. I have worked running a mining company. Thereafter, I was a central banker at the South African Reserve Bank. And now I run a startup company in the technology space, a company called Bambili Energy. And we intend to build South African fuel cell systems to support the hydrogen economy in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Zanele. Very welcome, and we're looking forward to what you have to say. Then the third member on our panel is Hina Patel. Hina, thank you.
So I'm Hina Patel, the Managing Director at Accenture Applied Intelligence Africa. And my career spans 23 years at the CSIR, which is Research, Development and Innovation, so I'm very familiar with the kind of research space. And then I also spent some time at Altron as a AI and automation lead. So I started also as a Java developer and went through the ranks to become a MD now. And in terms of Accenture, Accenture is a global professional services company, and its offerings include strategy and consulting, technology, operations, interactive services. We are over about 600,000 people globally, and we serve our clients in about 120 countries with our ecosystem partners. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Hina, and very welcome here. And then I'm welcoming Heidi Harper from Sunroll. Thank you, Heidi.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I represent Sunroll, and we are a national publicly owned entity, part of the Department of Transport, an agency of government. We are just under 500 staff members, and I've been at the company for over a decade. My personal background is in human resources or people and talent management, and my passion is the development of skills in the country and in my organization.
Thank you, Heidi. We're looking forward to hearing about your passion further on in the discussion. And then the last member on our panel is Mr. Andries Mthethwa. Andries, very welcome, and maybe a short word about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Professor Elof, and the other members of the panel, and everybody online. My name is Andries Mthethwa, as been said before, Chairman of the Board of Directors of ECTOM. My background is more of an electrical engineer for many years, and moved into management through the group at various stages, and today I'm the Chairman of the board. ECTOM is a large employer in South Africa, employing about between 6,000 and 7,000 people, depending on the level of activity. We are into the electrical equipment manufacturing, project execution, and even after sales. We are also into the trade of electromechanical equipment, mechanical because we're also into boiler manufacturing as well. So that's what ECTOM is all about. Great to be here, Prof.
Thank you very much, Andries, and very welcome here this afternoon. So we're here to discuss a few questions, and hopefully the answers that we will get from our esteemed panelists will shine some light on this. So the first question that we're going to discuss is what skills industry need? The second question, what are you looking for specifically when you employ somebody? And then the third one, is it worthwhile to do a postgraduate qualification? So we'll be working and discussing those three aspects. But before me doing so, let me just give a brief overview of the Ebit faculty. So the Ebit faculty is part of the University of Pretoria, and it is indeed a research-intensive faculty. Why do I say research-intensive? Because I believe that it's very important that if you consider doing postgraduate studies, that you go to the right place where they have got a deep level of research engagement. Of course, we not only want to do excellent research, but the Ebit faculty has set itself a goal to actually make a contribution to society, and that is the South African society, a developing world context to society in the large. And as such, all the research that we do aims to deliver something that's useful. And therefore, we align very closely with the well-known Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Just a few highlights about Ebit. Ebit is the #1 faculty for electrical and electronic engineering in South Africa. Right now in the world, we feature in the top 1% of engineering schools, and we are indeed listed in position 356 in the list of top engineering schools in the world. We have a high component of National Research Foundation rated researchers. We have about 40% of our researchers all rated as international recognized researchers. We have a number of research chairs. We have 31 of those chairs, and that's important because the research activities are scheduled around those chairs, and we do have world experts filling the positions of those chairs. The number of people in our faculty that's PhD graduated are now closer to 70%. We were 67% recently. And so it's very important that if you do go for postgraduate studies, of course, that you study with a person that's got a PhD degree. And then we are the #1 university for metallurgical and minerals engineering in South Africa. We produce 28% of all engineering graduates in South Africa. That, I think, is an excellent achievement. And we have an impressive approach to Industry 4.0, and we launched our Industry 4.0 facility just less than about 6 months ago. Very briefly, if you come for postgraduate studies, what will you do? So we have 6 main research focus areas at the University of Pretoria in our faculty. And in the heart of this is the 4th Industrial Revolution. And so that aligns very well with the other 5 research focus areas. We've got a focus on smart cities and smart transportation, where we look at healthy urban systems, smart transportation, new age building technologies, for example. We have an esteemed research group working in the space of energy. All aspects of energy, optimizing energy supply, not only supply, but also demand, and sustainable energy resources. So we do a lot of research in that space. Then we have a group working in minerals and materials beneficiation. Our mining department, together with our metallurgical department, does excellent work in this space. And we have a group working on water and environmental engineering. So water, I think from a developing world perspective, and especially for South Africa, is of course an area of prime responsibility, and we are contributing to just that. So we're going to start with the discussion. And the first question is, what skills do your employees need? And I'm going to ask Mr. Gerdus van Eeten van MultiChoice to give his views on that. Thank you, Gerdus.
Thank you, Prof. Elof. So when it comes to skills that we're looking for candidates when we are recruiting, and there's many, of course, but the standout ones for me is above average digital literacy, really above average. So we need people that are digital natives, that lives in this new world, that's unavoidable. We also look for people that shows, or that's demonstrated skills of being able to deal with multidisciplinary environments. The days of focusing on single-mindedly on just one very narrow area, I think, is gone. And we need that multidisciplinary thinking from our employees. And then, of course, communication skills. That I think that goes without saying. In this world, the old stereotype of an engineer sitting in a dark room, not having to speak to anybody and just coding is long past. We need all our employees to be excellent communicators and to function very effectively in the environment. When I move then on to what do you look for in a new employee, more the traits, more, let's say, the things that a person brings. The first thing for me is true intellectual curiosity. That is really important. I think people with that is successful because they're questioning and they don't just accept the status quo. Very important for a company to evolve and to continue to be successful. Passion for the domain, whatever that domain is, the candidate needs to show that passion. The domain can't just be something on the side. There needs to be a demonstrated passion and contribution to the domain. If you're a coder, coding needs to be something which genuinely interests you and that genuinely you have a passion for. And then we want that fine balance of high competence and low arrogance. That fine balance needs to be there in any candidate, because the world is too complex. We can't function on our own. You need to be able to function within a team. And high competence, but also low arrogance is a lubricant for that kind of thing.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So that covers a bit of the skills as well as what you're looking for in a new employee. What comes to mind is what you said about a high level of curiosity, and so creative thinking, I believe, is important, and so on. But we'll come back to that. Thank you, Gerris. Hina, over to you. What skills are you looking for in a new employee?
So I think because our company is leading in the kind of digital, cloud, data and AI and security areas, I think it's important to look at the kind of intersection between data, cloud, AI, security. I think that's one of the critical things that we look at is that kind of multidisciplinarity in those kind of cutting edge technologies. And then in terms of actually what we're looking for from those individuals, it resonates what he's just mentioned, and it's important to look at things like, sort of you mentioned earlier that there's a hard skills and a soft skills that we look for. So for me, the hard skills are the typical disciplines like you have across the data value chain, because that's where we are interested in, around the kind of data engineering, architecture, machine learning engineers, data scientists. So those are the kind of hard skills that you need, and obviously deep learning and sort of advanced skills. But then in terms of the kind of softer skills, I think the active learning and growth mindset, which has a kind of curiosity inbuilt into it, the ability to have diversity and inclusion intelligence in a way, because I mean we're a global company, so we have lots of different types of people that we interact with. The ability to judge and make decisions, and that analytical, like critical thinking, but not just critical thinking, the synthesis of that and interpretation of that, and ability to communicate and articulate that in a digestible way. It's important from a communication perspective. And I mean, my colleagues already mentioned some of the other attributes, so I'm not going to repeat that.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. What is interesting, what you say, is this balance between hard skills and soft skills, but then active learning. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on active learning, and is that the thing that you expect of students arriving at Accenture, or will they be exposed to active learning within
absolutely,
work
absolutely. I mean, I'm a recent joiner at Accenture, so I was inundated by all the different types of learning, from ethics to technical. I even went on a data-driven reinvention masterclass in the first week that I was there. So there is a very big emphasis on continued learning, so that whenever you apply that for your customers, you have the sort of newest techniques and methodologies and frameworks, but also implementation. So it's ability to implement. So the balance between certifications as well as qualification is important for us, because we need to have the relevant certifications as well. So there's continuous learning.
Thank you. So it's clear industry expects more than just the qualification at the end of the day.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Hina. Zanele, can I go to you? Can you briefly talk about what skills do you expect from an employee?
So I think my fellow panelists have mentioned some great attributes, which I'll also try not to repeat. But I think that the way I would differ with them, I think there isn't anything like soft skills. I think it's hard skills and harder skills. So the harder skills are what I traditionally are referred to as the soft skills. So all those very sort of non-technical skills, if you will, I find that oftentimes are what create a very effective team member in the workplace. And I think the other attributes that I'd like to add to that bucket, because I think we're creating this fantastic bucket of attributes. And my perspective is that I'm coming from a startup, buy your bootstrap kind of environment. So unlike my former colleagues who come from far much larger organizations, we are running a very, very thin team on the ground. And so the ability to curate a team and team members that have these skills, we are looking for the ones who display them at a level of very high excellence, just because they need to really multitask. So your mindset is very, very important. Your relentless pursuit for excellence in your work and part of a team, and the inclusiveness, I think, is very important. I think oftentimes in our work environment, it's not about your title, it's not about the way you look, it's not about your religious background or whatever kind of background you have. It's all about, can you work effectively as part of a member of a team? And are you results orientated as a person? And are you really committed to continuous learning? Because in the work that we do, we are pioneering, and that pioneering really, really requires that you have deep internal reflection as you do your work and as you deliver for customers. And maybe lastly, because I could go on about this is such an important element of seeking and building teams, is do you have a sense of humor? I think that when you're in a work environment that's really high pressured, when you're putting in long hours, where there's lots of challenges, I think humor is a glue that enables everybody to manage their stress individually, but also as a group. So I think humor for me is a very, very important band-aid that really ties the team together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zanele. That's very interesting, and I'm quite interested in your concept of the basket of attributes that you referred to, which I think really puts it very well. And you mentioned that you not only need hard skills, but harder skills. Can you maybe just briefly expand a little bit on that?
I think the harder skills is, we work in a very, as in my other colleagues, we work in highly technical environments, right? And so at times it's not about your technical brilliance as an individual. That's not what's going to make you impactful as part of a team or delivering for customers. It's your ability to read the room. It's your ability to communicate and be effective in your communication to a technical and to a non-technical audience or customer. It's the ability to have good judgment, because oftentimes you need to make certain decisions on the fly, or you get outcomes that you were not expecting. And therefore, having good judgment, how do you teach somebody to have good judgment? And that's why I call those the harder skills, because oftentimes they are not in abundance. Finding people who have those are not, and because it calls into issue about values as well. What are your values, your integrity in the workplace? Because whoever you report to is not around you 24/7. In my work environment, I've got to trust my team members that they at all times they're doing the right thing. So it's those sets of skills that are not necessarily always taught in a classroom setting, that we expect our employees to exhibit 24/7.
Thank you very much, Zanele. That's very interesting. Heidi, can I go to you? And if you can talk to us, what skills are you looking at SANRAL in new employees? Thank you.
Well, for us, there's 3 areas of proficiency. We require technical proficiency in whatever discipline we are filling. It could be engineering, it could be legal, it could be finance. We require that technical proficiency in a particular discipline. The second one is the people proficiency. And I think Zanele expanded on that quite a bit in terms of the ability to work in a team, to have judgment, to bounce back after a fall, to have a sense of humor during difficult times, to be able to reflect on mistakes and learn from them, to be able to deal with difficult situations. We deliver roads in urban centers, in rural centers. We deliver and work with people who are highly qualified, and we deliver work outside with communities where they are struggling and there's very little infrastructure. That people proficiency, to be able to engage with people and to be able to be comfortable with the work that you are doing and confident in your ability to deliver and to participate in the process of infrastructure delivery. And the third one is a heightened sense of self-awareness. It's a foundation competency for leadership. Understanding why you are in the profession where you are, what your passion is, what drives you, and finding that sweet spot between what it is you want to get as an employee out of the organization and what the organization has to offer.
Thank you, Heidi. That's very interesting. Can you expand a little bit more about the technical proficiency? Typically at SANRAL, what skills, technical skills, are you looking at?
We are a public sector infrastructure development agency, and traditionally we employed a lot of civil engineers. As we move into the 4th industrial revolution, we find a merging of technical proficiency in civil engineering and IT skills and mechanical engineering skills and electrical engineering skills. So within the smart roads environment, we're looking towards the future. It's going to be about smart mobility, smart roads, smart cities, and we will build on what we already have and enhance it with an integration between disciplines. And then we have all our support professional services, which allow and provide the enabling environment for the organization to deliver on its mandate. That would include our people management, our legal department, our procurement of services, IT, etc.
Thank you, Heidi. So that gives us a good idea about the technical skills needed at SANRAL. I'd like to go on to Mr. Andries Mtetwa. Andries, if you look at skills and what you're looking for in a employee, in a new employee, can you share with us?
Thanks, Prof. Obviously, as my colleagues have mentioned before, for our field, you would need the relevant qualifications in the area of, in the technical field, in the manufacturing field, because we manufacture a lot of products, and there are methods, optimum methods of engineering there. We look at commercial, people with commercial skills, financial, and also project management skills when we do 10 key projects. And then, as I mentioned earlier, suitable qualification in the field of need. But also, Prof, we look at people who have the relevant experience. So experience is very important. And then we talked about the people's skills. And here really we are talking about communication. A person to join our team needs to be to exhibit some kind of flexibility, and most important of all, ethics, because we deal with all kinds of cross-section of customers. We also look at people who possess these interpersonal skills, who are able to engage, as mentioned earlier, on dealing with all kinds of people. We look for growth-oriented people, so you get opportunities to be promoted and so forth, but based on your qualification and your proficiency. Here we're talking about continuous professional development. So the sky is the limit as long as you develop yourself. Very important to look at customer focus. The customer for us is king, and we need to have the customer in mind all the time. The whole question of diversity management, we look at, is the person able to deal with a cross-section of, as my colleague mentioned earlier, of people from different backgrounds. Here we're talking about fellow employees as well as customers. Our customers are very, very diverse. Last, Prof, what I have here is a question of a person who succeeds in our organization is somebody who's got the capability to coach others to succeed. What I mean by that is that you must be prepared to develop other people. You can't keep things to your chest, and this helps in succession planning in order to ensure business continuity. So it's a strong value system in our organization to have that capability to coach others to succeed. That's how we coin it.
Thank you very much, Andres. What stood out for me of what you've said are three important skill types. And you've mentioned project management skills, then also ethics, and the last one, mentor and coaching, and to develop other people in the organization. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit more on the project management skills? That how do you see, what skills should an employee be equipped to, and what will he be exposed to with regard to project management?
So, project management, you got to deliver the project within time and within budget, obviously. So what we look at is does a person possess the skills of project management right through the system, from project inception until it's put into operation. So it's very important to develop or to acquire those skills, because we've got an opportunity, promotional opportunities based on your ability to be able to project manage whatever project you're dealing with. With those two in mind, deliver within time, and then also deliver within budget. Yes.
Thank you for that. Harris, I want to come back to you just a little bit more about, if you can elaborate on the technical skills required of the typical employee that you will recruit.
Yeah. So we have a wide diversity of skills requirements within the group, from RF, radio frequency type electronic engineers, all the way through to computer scientists and machine learning or AI and cloud skills, and a lot of it in between. So it's difficult for me to pinpoint one, but if I must, AI, machine learning for us is a theme that we've identified as an absolute must do, an absolute must excel in, because we believe that our group's success in future is going to be dependent on having the right kind of employee that can progress that field for us. Otherwise, we will fall behind. So if I have to lift out one area, that is the one area that I have to. And that's also why we have the chair with the university around that topic.
Yes, and I think, speaking to all the companies out there, AI constantly pops up. So are we talking about AI, artificial intelligence literacy, or are we talking about, very detailed technical skills or across the spectrum?
We are talking about probably 3 levels. The deep technical skills, absolutely. The people that can identify or can implement, very, very complex models. But then you need people that understand it well enough that they can be proponents for candidates for AI projects within a company. It's not people that necessarily can implement a neural network, but people that understand enough about the predictive power of AI, machine learning, for them to be supporters of such projects as it gets proposed, and so forth. And then you probably need the intermediate people who kind of straddles those 2 categories.
So if I understand you correctly, artificial intelligence almost becomes like a cross-cutting discipline, and
Yes.
it cuts across all the different skills and people that you all recruit.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Hina, so at Accenture, your position specifically deals with applied artificial intelligence, and in Africa specifically. Can you just expand a little bit more on that and bring it back to what skills are we looking for? What skills the people must have that you will recruit?
So as I mentioned, I think the spectrum in terms of your digital, so that's from a technical perspective, so digital, cloud, data, AI, and there's the kind of applied aspect is the usefulness of that for our customers and clients. So it can be in any vertical industry or whatever. So it could be in retail, it could be for resources, it could be for telecommunications, it could be for public sector. So that intersection as well is to be able to say most of the skills are pretty much agnostic to a particular vertical, but the ability to apply it in relevance to a retail, say a retail company. How do you do a loyalty program, or how do you help them with customer recommendations or customer 360 views or things like that? So that's how we mean by applying that kind of new age techniques and this emergent skills, which is the intersection of these, into a particular for a particular customer to provide them with that competitive advantage. Don't know
so thank you. Yes. So if you say applied artificial intelligence, of course, one then starts thinking about the different application domains. So at Accenture, what type of application domains are you working in today where you really require this artificial intelligence skills?
I think it's so broad. I mean, it's like I said, it depends on the client and what they want to do, but it's to drive a kind of data-led journey. So a lot of the companies are on a digital transformation journey, but the intention is to try and make it a data-led transformation. So it's how do you use the various elements of your data to create new products, new business models, new innovations, and also insights. So that's the application of that in those different industries.
Okay.
But it's really the drive is data-driven, and it's at scale. So it's how do you practically implement it and not just stay at a proof of concept, but to actually implement it at scale for enterprises. So I think that's how it.
Thank you for that. Zanele, I want to go back to you just with regard to skills, what skills are required. So your company is in the energy space. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what specific job skills are you looking at? Right, so we will talk to Zanele a bit later on. And so, Heidi, can we go back to Sanral? And you've already mentioned the importance of civil engineering combined with IT skills. But surely at Sanral, there's also a need for this cross-cutting type of skills, and we've just talked a little bit about artificial intelligence, machine learning. Can you talk about the cross-cutting skills that you will look at Sanlam? Sorry, at Sanral? So I think we will get back to our two panelists, Zanele and Heidi, talk a little bit more about the skills in their specific industry sectors. Heidi, can you hear me? Good. So let's carry on. I would like to go to the last question on our list by talking about the need to have a postgraduate qualification. So also would like you to, if possible, to share with us, if you think about your workforce, what percentage of that workforce will have a postgraduate qualification? What type of postgraduate qualifications we're looking at? Gerris, can we start with you? Thank you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it's a very important field for us, machine learning, and it is so that machine learning still straddles academia on the one side, in other words, research, and on the other side, industry. So machine learning is not a pre-packaged technology that you can sell to a entity like ourselves. You have to have the in-house skills that is very well versed in research around it, but also the implementation side. So that is why I see that you know, at least our target would be to have at least 10% of our people in that particular the high expertise field to be postgrads. And it's only in postgrad really where that comes in. The unfortunate fact is for engineers is that you must cram centuries of engineering knowledge into a postgrad engineer's head in 4 years, sometimes longer, unfortunately. And there's no space really to bring in advanced techniques and the cutting edge, and also the research element, getting well versed in the research element. That's why we see postgrad on a master's level and a PhD level as a very important skill to or qualification to bring into our environment. Yeah, I hope that answers the question, Prof.
Thank you. So I like very much what you said about the in-house skills versed in a postgraduate qualification. And you've also mentioned that you're looking at the high end of expertise and about 10% of your workforce. Do you want your current workforce, the employees, to advance themselves by doing a postgraduate qualification, or are you recruiting people with a postgraduate qualification? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Yep. And what sort of development from a postgrad point of view do you do?
Yeah, we actually do both. We have employees who current employees who actually enroll for postgrad studies. We've got several at the moment engaged in postgrad studies at UP. And it ranges from masters in IT, which is basically data science, through to masters in computer science and engineering. So that is the one element. There is employees with that mindset of continuous and active learning that wants to do that and continues to do that. But then that is not enough for us. We also need to recruit from the outside. And because of the dearth of candidates in this area, for several reasons, it's highly sought after. There's many companies after it. We've also decided to sponsor this chair of machine learning, which actively develops from the ground up the skills, and it particularly focus on postgrad. Yes, we do also have a few undergrad students, but the vast majority, 80% of our students are postgrad, being masters or PhD. So we have to do both, given the scarcity in this area.
I think, the whole initiative of this chair in machine learning is a wonderful initiative. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what specific areas of interest within that space? Because I believe that that's very attractive for our postgraduate students.
Yes, yeah. Once again, it ranges from very data-driven financial type of applications. For example, fraud detection, where through the examination of data and machine learning, fraud can be detected in a large customer base like ours. So that's kind of what I would call classical kind of machine learning predictive applications. But then we've got very other interesting media-based machine learning. For example, we now employ is probably not the right word, but use a machine learning auto-edit system to basically identify automatically the highlights in a soccer game, for example, and it compiles those clips automatically during the game, so that we can publish that highlights package to our customers very quickly after the final whistle has blown. That is impossible for humans to do. It's only through the application of machine learning that identify those interesting clips, be it a goal, be it a near goal, or be it a corner, whatever, and puts it together. So it really opens up applications for us and capabilities which would be impossible, without.
Thank you very much for that. That's very interesting. Zanele, can I go to you by asking you, also picking up from our discussion earlier on, a little bit more about the specific skills, and again going back to your basket of skills that you talked about, but then link it to, is there a need for a person with a postgraduate qualification in Bombili Group? Thank you.
I'm just going to confirm that you can hear me well, because I couldn't hear the question very well.
Thank you.
I'm assuming you were inquiring about the training program that we are doing jointly with the University of Pretoria.
Sure.
Yes, we are deploying a new technology in South Africa called fuel cell systems. It's basically similar to the technology that we're using is similar to a generator, but it's running off hydrogen instead of diesel. And to showcase this technology, we are working very closely with the South African government. We were selected to deploy 15 fuel cell systems in South Africa. And we wanted to do this last year. And we thought that as part of working on this particular project, it would also be important to ensure that we had started to have local competency in this type of technology. So we approached University of Pretoria to develop a training program so that we could have a fuel cell technical engineers to work on our systems and make sure that we basically import this capability into South Africa, so that we would have a cohort of individuals who have proficiency in the skill. And the University of Pretoria was very forward-thinking and agreed to partner with us to offer this training. And to date, we have trained 38 candidates who now have that ability in South Africa, which will be very useful to us as a company and other companies who are also working in the fuel cell industry.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting indeed to hear about the new generator technology. Can you elaborate a little bit more about if you have to recruit a postgraduate student, what sort of postgraduate qualifications will you be looking for?
Okay. So they're very much in the engineering field. So we employ both chemical and electrical engineers to work as part of our teams. But because we are involved in manufacturing as well, we do hire people with deep manufacturing experience. And we expect all our employees to be very focused on their continuous education and development. So it would be them looking at the fields of renewable energy and ensuring that they are very knowledgeable, because that's the field in which we provide our products to, is really about finding renewable solutions for our customers. So really it's in the field of engineering and in the field of energy that we are expecting our employees to be really focused on their continuous development.
Thank you for that. So would you say that a person with an honors degree or a master's degree?
I apologize if I've answered your question.
So can we just elaborate a little bit more? Would it be feasible to appoint an honors graduate in engineering or a master's graduate or even a PhD graduate? Right, Hina, can we get back to you and talk about postgraduate students, and is a postgraduate qualification worthwhile in today's time?
I want to say resounding absolutely, yes. It is very important, and I think it's about contributing to the body of new knowledge, new body. I think it's also for us where we do constant market scanning research, looking at cutting edge research in terms of trends and drivers and how it's applied. It's important because it's a thought leadership, and the thought leadership requires you to be subject matter experts or advanced knowledge in terms of your whichever area it is. So that's absolutely a requirement for us. Like I said earlier, it's also a balance between postgrad as well as, having certifications and ability to develop those kind of platforms and specific IP and assets and accelerators. Mm-hmm. It's important to have the technology development piece, but also the piece where you're looking at frameworks and new methods and new techniques. But that intersection is important. And so I think the postgraduate studies allows you to learn that way of searching and coming up. And sometimes you have to also build artifacts and so forth. So I think that's useful. I think the other thing is the ability to almost tackle complex problems. So the more advanced you are, I think, in your degree, you have the ability to start to do that, and break it down into kind of modular pieces where you can work with that. So I think that's that's one of the reasons why we would also have that. And then I think from a career progression and a retention perspective, it's important because it's not just your own skill, but it's your business alignment and growth, because you're building that kind of know-how into that. So I think it's important when we employ people, either having a postgrad or while we are employing them, having a learning. It's important that that career progression is also taken into account, because otherwise, as my colleague mentioned, it's such a short supply of these really pertinent skills that we need: data science and data engineering, machine learning engineers, etc. It's so scarce that it's important that as an organization, as a company, we make sure that it's part of the career progression, that there is an alignment between your business goals and your own intrinsic aspirations as an individual. And that match, it's tricky because you have these you have these responsibilities and you have to, deliver projects and things, but to find that balance, it's important.
Yes, thank you for that. I completely agree. And I think from an educational perspective, being involved in many postgraduate students on master's and doctoral level, I think two of the things that you've mentioned that really stands out is new knowledge and the creation of new knowledge, but then also to handle complex problems. And I think this is where postgraduate studies comes to the fore, to actually expose the student to problems of high level of uncertainty and to develop possible solutions for that. So thank you very much for that. Zanele, can we go back to you?
Yes, you may. I can hear you clearly now.
Yes, thank you, Zanele. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the postgraduate qualifications that you will be interested in, and what skills do you think those postgrad qualified people will bring to your company?
So, there's an R&D component, because part of the subcomponents of our fuel cell systems require a continuous R&D, and so it's masters and PhD students are also welcome into our organization, and they're able to fit both on the R&D side of the business and also on the business side, where they can interface directly with customers and assisting our customers with their finding more renewable energy solutions. So there's several. They can work in both areas. Ideally, our students, we want, or candidates rather, we'd like them to get exposure to the entire business, and then they can eventually over time settle or specialize in a particular area. But having well-rounded individuals who understand the whole business, we think is very, very essential for their own individual development and for their ability to add value to the underlying business.
Thank you, Zanele. I think what you've said about the R&D component directly talks to a good postgraduate qualification, and us as educators put a lot of value on independent research, that the student can come and research and search for a solution, also work on his own and not necessarily always dependent on other people. Thank you very much for that. Heidi, can we go to Sanral, also picking up from the skills discussion, but specifically trying to go and talk about what postgraduate qualifications is valuable at Sanral, and what type of skills do you get out of those people?
Thank you for that question. It links back to the first three areas which I mentioned: the technical proficiency, the people proficiency, and the self-awareness. The technical proficiency within Sanral is about infrastructure development. So a big component of that is about engineering. Another component is about finance. And the third is about the procurement mechanisms that we use. We encourage a lot of students to do their postgraduate studies in engineering, and this ranges from materials management engineering, materials engineering, geotech, transportation management. Some of them are doing electrical engineering, some of them are doing project management. Those are to support their technical proficiency. We also encourage the generalist degrees, the MBAs, because we believe that if technical people want to do a postgrad which has a broader focus, it can only strengthen the organization and allow for a deeper understanding of different professions within the organization and contribute towards complex problem solving. And then the third area is about leadership development. We encourage students to do leadership training, to understand and build a big cohort of leadership savvy people within the organization to be able to guide the decision making at each level.
So do you recruit students with an honors degree in engineering, a master's degree? Have you recruited any PhD students working at SANRAL?
We very seldom recruit PhD students. I can't recall if we've recruited any in the last 5 years, but we do have quite a few students internally who are making use of the internal bursary scheme to do PhD studies, and that is also encouraged.
Thank you very much for that, Heidi. Andries, can we go to you and talk a little bit about the value of a postgraduate qualification, and how do you see what type of skills come because of that person has done a postgraduate qualification?
Thanks, Prof. I think in our industry, the R&D work is a competitive advantage. So you find companies spending huge amounts of money doing R&D, because without R&D, your solution or your product becomes obsolete. And I think with the various technologies that are coming into play now, we obviously need to do more R&D. However, in our field or in our country, we have tended to partner with global players who spend a lot of money doing R&D. Some of them doing, 16% or 20% of their turnover just doing R&D, and we've tended to piggyback on that. However, in Actom, the way we are now, being a 100% South African company, we need to develop our own R&D specialists to make us competitive, to continue being competitive, and also to do designs or to look at solving country-specific problems, because sometimes the design or the R&D is done elsewhere, and you think you can just come and plug it in here. You find that it doesn't work. We experienced that, for example, in the renewable energy field, where we found that some products overseas were fine being applied in that field. When it came here, they started giving us problems. So we had to find out, and it goes back to say that we need to develop our own research team. However, as I said earlier, R&D people or researchers are highly mobile, and they are very expensive. And however, we need to start looking at a solution on how to solve that issue of costs of real fundamental R&D research. I'm not talking about applications engineering, but real R&D. And then we need to find a way on how to deal with that. And even after we have developed them, how do we retain them to make sure that we retain them in the country? We have seen, as I said earlier, they are highly mobile. South Africa, sometimes we tend to label these things, talk about brain drain and so forth. Those are the first people who leave the country. And we need to find a way on how to retain them. Because of the way that the cost attributable to this being so high, we need to find a way between industry and academia on how to deal with that cost element in terms of doing fundamental research and see and develop solutions that are specific to our country. So I believe that that is the way to go on how to find a way on how to share costs to do R&D, because as I said earlier, we have tended to depend on our technology partners doing that R&D, fundamental research and development work.
Thank you, Andres. It is very encouraging to hear what you've just said, in the sense that especially the bigger global companies will rely on where the development and research work is done in Europe or in the United States, and where in your group you have put a refocus on it to also invest in local development and local research, and have a local R&D effort in the company, especially also in the renewable energy field that you've mentioned. And I think, you talked about the costs of an R&D function, and that is quite an expensive division in a company to have. So do you feel that the cost can be covered by this balance between industry and academia, that we have focused masters and doctoral students participating in the research programs, and then at the same time also engage in searching for industry-related solutions? Maybe can you elaborate on that, please?
I totally agree, Prof. I think the solution lies there on how to deal with that in partnership between industry and institutions like the University of Pretoria, to see how we develop our own group of researchers for the relevant field, as well as the specific challenges that faces our country. I'll give you an example. For example, when we have some of these problems, sometimes we engage with the faculties of higher learning, engineering, and find a way of solving that problem. We had a serious problem, for example, with partial discharge on some of our high voltage instrument transformers. So we engaged a university faculty of engineering to deal with that, and a lot of homemade or homegrown solution resulted from that sort of collaboration. So I think it's a formula that works, and to try and address this fear or non-committal in terms of committing costs into doing proper R&D, because the time is long, and then also the cost is high. If the financial department looks at it and say, okay, what is the payback period for this investment we are making? It's sometimes very difficult to justify.
Thank you very much. So it seems to me that we have consensus about the importance of postgraduate studies if it is to, hire people that can solve complex problems, or also people that can fill in this whole function of research and development. I think all those aspects pinpoint to the importance of engaging in postgraduate studies. So in summary, just to finally wrap up on this question of is a postgraduate degree worthwhile, can I ask each one of the panelists just to say a final word? Is it worthwhile, and what is the most important aspect to encourage a young person today to engage in a postgraduate studies? Heidi, can we start with you?
Yes, Prof. It's most definitely worthwhile. And I think at SANRAL, we've been involved with a variety of universities focusing on postgraduate studies. For all organizations out there, I would encourage the making internal bursaries available and encouraging postgraduate studies, the foundation of technical research, and also of a development in leadership development in terms of self-management, time management, and the application of knowledge in the workplace.
Thank you, Heidi. Zanele, can we go to you? Do you think it's important to have postgraduate qualifications in South Africa?
Without a doubt. But I would say that what's also important is that you need people who have got qualification, but who have also in equal amount deep motivation, right? Because we want people who are not only qualified, but also people who can think creatively, work collaboratively, and keep on learning. So that they are creating a difference not only in their individual development as their career development, but also making their organizations and creating a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Zanele. Andries, can we go to you? Just a final word on, do you think a postgraduate qualification for your group is important? And, how can we encourage young people and early career people to engage in a postgraduate qualification?
Thanks, Prof. Totally agreed. I think we are at a stage where, in order to be competitive in the technical fields globally, we got to start looking at South Africa Inc. and see what are we doing in terms of research and development. Countries can measure themselves to say, okay, out of our GDP, a percentage of this is committed towards research and development in various spheres. So I think for us, especially solutions that will suit our requirements, not that we are special, but that will suit local requirements as well. It is important that we support and grow that group of researchers in the country. No question about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Andries. Harris, can we jump to multi-choice? Is a postgraduate qualification worthwhile to recruit people with it? And what will you do and to help us to motivate young people to engage in a postgraduate study?
Yeah, I mean, as I think it was clear from our early discussion, it's an absolute resounding yes. We need in this country, and broader speaking on this continent, we need a steady supply of postgrads, a diverse group of people that's grown up here, that understands the local conditions, and that can apply this higher level of thinking that postgrad studies verse you into to the unique problems of our markets and our countries. We can't rely on postgrads from the US or from Europe or from China to do that for us. We need to find our own solutions. We've got the talent. I'm very, very clear on that. And it's just a matter of convincing this talent that it's important for them to engage in postgrad studies and develop that higher thinking levels and proficiencies. So we will continue to encourage it as we are at the moment, because we absolutely truly believe in the necessity of it.
Thank you very much, Gerdus. So we have a few minutes for some questions from the audience out there.
Do you not want mine?
Pardon?
You didn't want my inputs?
Sorry?
You didn't want my inputs?
She still needs to say.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Please proceed. Sorry.
I think you skipped it.
Yes, no problem. Apologies.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to also say that I think what COVID has taught us, in a way, is that the global community needs to be resilient, adapt, and be, persevere. And I think if you're working on a postgrad, those are the kind of skills you need to have underlying the ability to persevere and complete the study or complete what you're doing. And I think for us, as a country, as a continent, I think it's important that we nurture that, and we co-create together, in terms of relevant topics, and build that intellectual capital for the continent, but that we can put ourselves on the map as well, that we have got so many innovations here, but we can also, through industry, commercialize those and not just give them up.
Yes.
So I think for us, it's very important that we do that and we build that skills. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's a great contribution. And I think especially what you said to, contribute to the development of Africa as a continent, and to do that by leveraging academia and industry. And that exactly is where postgraduate studies come to play. So we have a few minutes for some questions. And the first question comes from Boshoko Pule. The question is, what does each company in the panel do to incline creative thinking for employees in a company? Actively, not just a once-off activity. So what do you do, Gerdus, to nurture creative thinking in MultiChoice?
We run programs internally where we encourage our employees to come up with ideas that they develop for the business, and it's an annual thing. I mean, just this week we had the awards for where the entire company attended, and where we actually awarded prizes to the employees that has come up with the best ideas. And it's an annual cycle process. It is something which we absolutely invest a lot in and encourage. I think it's indispensable. It's got to be done, and we're doing it. Yeah.
Thank you. Hina, can you talk a little bit about how creative thinking within Accenture is stimulated?
Yeah, so we have a couple of type of initiatives that we do. So the one is like active brainstorming around proposals, etc. So you can bring in your contribution, etc. The other is a concept around liquid studios, where your ideas are kind of brought into life. So virtual, physical, ability to show what your idea is and demonstrate it. So those are some of the things. And then obviously there are active learning mechanisms around that, and actually putting you on projects where you can actually expose your creative side, and not just expose yourself, but actually learn. Those are the three different kinds of techniques, and there could be a lot more, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Yes, thank you very much. Andres, from Actum side, what would you say do you do to stimulate creative thinking?
Yes, Prof. We for example, have a a magazine where employees are encouraged to publish ideas and also technical papers that they have presented. And then annually, we adjudicate those, and it's such a prestigious honor when one guy gets that technology, that award as such. So we encourage that quite a lot.
Thank you very much. From Sanral's side, Heidi?
Yeah, we run programs which encourage thinking, actually. And we've subscribed to a certain methodology in terms of managing meetings and coaching and mentoring using the thinking environment. We also have a structure which is multidisciplinary focus groups and working groups. And annually they have projects which are developed to support the business. It's aimed at performance improvement. And those focus groups and working groups are then incentivized to deliver on those programs. So those are the two that come to mind. We also have the Technical Excellence Academy, which is a think tank or an incubator to train young engineers in design. And the aim is to get them professionally registered with EXA. The T is also a space where lots of creativity and out-of-the-box thinking would be able to happen in terms of the design of roads. These are the few that come to mind.
The design level and design thinking and so on. Zanele, can we end off this round with you? How important is creative thinking, or how do you stimulate creative thinking in Bambili Energy?
So as a startup working to develop a new industry and get market adoption on a new product, notice the number of news in that sentence. It means by the very nature of our work, we have to be constantly thinking outside the box and constantly innovating and being creative in making it happen. So two specific examples I'd like to share. For example, we're talking to a potential customer in Lagos, Nigeria, who's interested in adopting fuel cell systems. And the question is, once we get our product there, how do we make sure that they have the feedstock, right? And we had come up with a solution, but the customer didn't like our solution. So we had to go back to the drawing board and rethink about how else, could we get the client comfortable around the feedstock that could work for them. So that's one example. The second example I wanted to share is we were about to launch 15 fuel cell systems at the beginning of last year when COVID-19 struck, and we were supposed to put up these 15 fuel cell systems across the country. And so what we did instead is in this case, the South African government was our customer. So we proposed to them that we use the fuel cell systems to support government initiatives around COVID-19. And so they loved the idea. And instead, we took 7 of the fuel cell systems and we deployed them at a military hospital in Pretoria, one military hospital it's called. They put a COVID-19 field hospital on the grounds, and that COVID-19 field hospital is being powered through our fuel cells, and our fuel cells are providing primary power to that field hospital. So again, there, we had one idea of how we were going to deliver this product. In a short window, we had to rethink and recalibrate about how we were going to deliver the product and think outside the box. So it's just inbuilt. It's the way we do business, is that it's constantly creative and thinking outside the box.
Thank you very much. That's a perfect note for us to end the session. especially the two examples, very practical examples. And it links back to what I said at the opening and the beginning of our panel discussion this afternoon, that to engage in postgraduate studies, yes, you want to do it to be excellent in the research work that you do, but more importantly, you want to make a social impact. You want to contribute to society in the large. All what remains now for me is to thank our esteemed, I should say, panel members here this afternoon. Gerris van Eden from MultiChoice, thank you very much for your participation. Zanele Mbata from Bambili Group, thank you very much. Also, apologies for the few hiccups we had with the sound. But then also a special word of thanks to Hina Patel from Accenture. Heidi Harper from Sunral, thank you, Heidi, for your participation. Andries, thank you very much for your wisdom that you've shared with us. Andries Matetua from the Acton Board. Thank you very much to our audience out there. Thank you for attending. And I trust that you understand and know where to go to for postgraduate studies. Come and speak to us at the Ebit faculty at UP. Thank you and goodbye.